They told her that marriage would be her safe place, that after a lifetime of staring down discrimination, finding a partner who promised to protect her would mean the cold finally stopped touching her skin. Naomi thought she was wrong for once. She thought being married meant being seen, being protected, but she forgot one critical thing. A man's protection means nothing when his own mother decides your bloodline doesn't match hers. And if you grew up in a small town like Millfield, Georgia, you already knew that name. Not because she was famous, not because she had done anything wrong, but because in a town like Millfield, a black woman who carried herself with her head high was always going to make somebody uncomfortable. Naomi was 31 years old. She had big, warm brown eyes that always looked like they were thinking about something deeper than what was in front of her. Her skin was a deep, rich brown, the kind that caught sunlight and held it. She wore her natural hair in a full twist out on Sundays, and she pressed it flat for work on Mondays. She had learned early that she needed two versions of herself just to survive 1 week. She had lived in Millfield her whole life, knew every road, every corner store, every face, and most of those faces had never truly seen her. The church came first. Greater Hope Baptist had been her grandmother's church, her mother's church. Naomi had been baptized there at 7 years old. She had sung in the junior choir, helped fold bulletins, swept the fellowship hall more times than she could count. She had given that church everything a young girl could give. But somewhere between childhood and adulthood, the church had shifted. Or maybe it had always been that way, and she just hadn't been old enough to notice. It started with Sister Patricia Hollis, a heavy-set woman in her 60s who smelled like lavender and always wore white gloves on Communion Sunday. Sister Patricia had a habit of making little comments, the kind that were soft enough to deny, but sharp enough to draw blood. "Naomi, baby, you know you'd be so pretty if you just relaxed your edges a little," she'd said once, right after service. Naomi had smiled. She was good at smiling. Then there was the time the women's group had put together a fundraiser dinner. Naomi had spent a whole Saturday cooking her grandmother's sweet potato pie, 6 of them. She carried them in, set them on the table, and before she could even find a seat, Sister Deborah Cole had whispered to another woman, loud enough that Naomi could hear every single word. "I just hope she washed her hands properly." The other woman had laughed. Soft, careful, the way people laugh when they know something is wrong but don't want to say so. Naomi had picked up her purse and walked out. She'd left all 6 pies on that table. She never got so much as a thank you for them. The pastor, Reverend Hicks, was a kind-seeming man who preached love every Sunday and practiced selective blindness every other day of the week. He saw what happened to Naomi. He saw the way certain women moved away from her at events, the way certain deacons never greeted her by name, the way she was always given the jobs nobody else wanted, cleaning, organizing, lifting. He never said a word about it, not once. So Naomi stopped going. She told herself it was fine. Maybe she needed a different church. Maybe this just wasn't the right community. Maybe God wasn't the problem, just the people who claimed to speak for him. But it hurt. It hurt in the quiet kind of way that doesn't make any noise but sits heavy on your chest for years. Then there was the neighborhood. Naomi rented a small apartment on Clover Street, 3 blocks from the elementary school and 2 blocks from the only grocery store in town that sold fresh collard greens. She kept her apartment clean. She kept her porch swept. She had a little potted plant by the door, a peace lily that she watered every morning before work. Her next-door neighbor was a woman named Linda Foss. Linda was white, in her mid-50s, with a tight blonde perm and a habit of standing at her window every time Naomi had a visitor. Linda had a homeowners association group chat, even though they were all renters, and Naomi had once accidentally been added to it before someone quickly removed her. She had seen one message before they took her out. It was from Linda. "Does anyone else feel like the neighborhood has been changing lately?" Nobody had responded in writing. But Naomi knew. She had always known. When she had asked the building manager, Mr. Terrence Webb, about the slow water pressure in her bathroom that had been broken for 3 months, he had shrugged and said he'd get around to it. The woman in 4B, a white woman named Susan who had moved in after Naomi, had her faucet replaced within a week of complaining. Naomi had noticed. She always noticed. She wasn't the type to scream about it. She wasn't the type to make scenes. She had learned from her mother that a black woman who raises her voice is labeled angry before anyone asks why. So she stayed quiet, She wrote things down in a little journal she kept in her nightstand drawer. Page after page of small indignities. Paper cuts that never quite healed. The workplace was the worst of all. Naomi worked as a junior account manager at Piedmont Financial Solutions, a mid-sized firm on the edge of downtown Millfield that handled business accounts and insurance portfolios. She had worked there for 4 years. She was good at her job. Everybody privately knew it, even the people who refused to say it out loud. Her supervisor was Craig Donovan, a man in his late 40s who wore khaki pants every single day and thought his golf references were the peak of office humor. Craig liked to give the exciting accounts, the big-name clients, the ones with potential for commission, to Brad or Tyler or Melissa. All people who looked a very particular way. Naomi got the accounts nobody wanted. The old ones. The complicated ones. The ones that required twice the work for half the recognition. When she had quietly but clearly outperformed the entire team in the third quarter, Craig had called a team meeting to congratulate Brad for strong team leadership. Brad hadn't even worked on the accounts Naomi had carried. She had sat in that meeting with her hands folded in her lap and her face completely still. She went home that night, sat on her bathroom floor, and cried until her eyes were swollen. Then she washed her face, made herself a cup of chamomile tea, and got up the next morning and went back to work. Because that was what Naomi Clark did. She got back up, every single time. But there's only so many times a person can get back up before they start wondering if the ground is worth getting back up from. That wondering was what led her to J1 Park. She had met him on a Thursday evening at the Pearl, a restaurant in downtown Atlanta where her coworker had dragged her for a colleague's birthday dinner. Naomi hadn't wanted to go. She'd put on a simple burgundy wrap dress anyway, done her twists up into a puff, and told herself she'd stay for 1 hour. Just one. She had stayed for 4. Not because of the food, though the food was good. Not because of the company. Her coworkers spent most of the night talking about Craig's new golf membership. She stayed because of the man at the table across the room. He wasn't doing anything dramatic. He was just sitting there, listening to whoever was speaking at his table with this focused, serious expression, like what the other person was saying was the most important thing in the world. He had sharp features, dark hair that fell slightly across his forehead, and a quiet kind of confidence that didn't need to announce itself. He looked up once and caught her staring. She looked away immediately, studied her menu like it was going to be on a test. She heard a low, warm laugh from across the room. 20 minutes later, a waiter set a small dessert plate on her table, a single piece of honey cake with a card beside it. She opened the card. "You look like you needed something sweet." "Jay!" She looked up. He was still watching. Calm, not pushy, just watching. She picked up her pen and wrote on the back of the card, handed it to the waiter to return. "I'm allergic to honey." But the gesture was nice. N. She heard the laugh again, louder this time. Real. Unguarded. That was how it started. His name was J1 Park, and he was not what she expected. She found out slowly, over coffee the following Saturday at a small cafe in Midtown Atlanta called Birch & Company, that he ran a private security and logistics firm headquartered in Atlanta with operations stretching up to Chicago and as far as Los Angeles. He was 35. He had been born in Seoul and raised partly in the United States after his family relocated when he was 12. He spoke English with almost no accent, though certain words came out a little more deliberate, a little more careful. She found out later, much later, about the other parts of his business, the parts that didn't appear on any company website. But that first Saturday, he was just a man drinking an Americano and asking her genuine questions. "What do you actually like to do?" he'd asked, leaning forward on his elbows. "Not what's on your resume. What do you actually do?" She'd thought about it. "I paint," she said. "Just watercolors. Nothing serious." "Can I see?" "No," she said flatly. He'd grinned. "Okay. Fair enough." That was the thing about J1. He didn't push. He waited. He listened in a way that made Naomi feel like she was the only person in the room, and she was so used to feeling invisible that being seen, really seen, felt almost foreign. They met again the next weekend, and the one after that. He took her to Ponce City Market one Saturday and they walked through every stall. He bought her a handmade bracelet from a vendor without her asking, just because he saw her stop and look at it twice. She tried to protest, and he just raised an eyebrow like really, and kept walking. She wore that bracelet every day. He flew them both to New Orleans for a long weekend in October because she'd mentioned once, casually, that she had never been. Just once. He had remembered. They'd walked through the French Quarter with beignet powder all over their clothes, and she had laughed more in those 3 days than she had in the last 3 years combined. He had surprised her with a small sketchbook and a travel watercolor set on the last morning. For the view from the hotel, he'd said simply. You kept staring at it. She hadn't said anything. She just held the sketchbook and felt something she couldn't quite name settle into her chest. By December, she wasn't trying to talk herself out of it anymore. She was in love with J1 Park. Fully, quietly, helplessly in love, and he loved her back. She knew it not from anything he announced, but from the way he drove 40 minutes on a Tuesday night just to bring her soup when she texted him that she had a cold. The way he learned which tea she liked and kept it in his kitchen. The way he looked at her, steadily, openly, like she was something real and permanent. They got married in March, in a small ceremony at a botanical garden in Savannah, Georgia. Just close friends. Soft yellow flowers. Her grandmother's ring on her finger. She wore white, a simple, fitted gown with her hair in big natural curls, and she had never felt more like herself in her entire life. She really thought, that this was the beginning of something safe. She was wrong. Mrs. Park arrived in Atlanta in April. Suni Park was 63 years old, slim, and wore her silver-streaked hair in a perfect low bun. She dressed expensively and quietly. She had manners so precise they felt like weapons. She spoke in Korean primarily, with careful English reserved for specific moments, usually moments where she wanted to make sure there was no misunderstanding about what she meant. She arrived at J1, and Naomi's home on a Tuesday evening with 2 large suitcases and the expression of a woman who was tolerating something. J1 had warned Naomi. She's traditional, he'd said carefully. She just needs time. Naomi had nodded. She understood difficult family dynamics. She understood earned acceptance. She was willing to work for it. But from the moment Suni Park stepped into that house and looked at Naomi, really looked at her, something shifted in the room. It wasn't anything said yet. It was in the way Suni's eyes moved. Slow, taking inventory, landing on Naomi's dark skin and staying there a half-second too long. J1 introduced them. Suni smiled. It was a perfect smile. Not one single muscle out of place. You are Naomi, she said. Yes, Naomi said warmly, extending her hand. It's really lovely to meet you. Suni looked at the outstretched hand, shook it once, quickly, then turned to J1 and said something in Korean. J1's jaw tightened slightly. Mom, he said, a quiet warning. Suni smiled again and walked past Naomi toward the guest room. Naomi stood in the hallway with her hand still slightly extended. What did she say? She asked quietly. J1 looked at her. There was something in his face she couldn't fully read. She said she was tired from the flight, he said. Maybe that was true. Probably it wasn't. The days that followed were a slow, steady drip of the same poison Naomi had been drinking her whole life, just in a different glass. Suni never raised her voice, never said anything outright cruel in English. But she had 100 small ways of making Naomi feel like a stranger in her own home. She would speak exclusively in Korean when the 3 of them were together, knowing full well Naomi couldn't follow. She would rearrange things in the kitchen without asking. She would look at Naomi's natural hair with an expression that hovered somewhere between confusion and distaste. She would offer J1 food she'd cooked without offering any to Naomi. Then, if Naomi reached for it, she'd say sweetly, "Oh, I wasn't sure if you would eat this kind of thing." This kind of thing. Like Naomi was a different species. One evening, Naomi overheard a phone call. She wasn't trying to eavesdrop. She had just stepped out of the bedroom to get a glass of water. Suni was in the living room, speaking in Korean on the phone, voice low but clear. Naomi didn't understand the words, but she recognized a name. Her own. And she recognized something else. The tone. The long pause. The sharp exhale. She went back to the bedroom, closed the door quietly, and sat on the edge of the bed. Later, because she needed to know, she typed what she could remember of the sounds into a translation app. It was imperfect, choppy, but enough. Enough to understand that Suni Park had told whoever was on that phone that Naomi's blood would ruin the family. That J1 had made a mistake. That someone like her was not what the Park family needed. Someone like her. Naomi closed the app. She put the phone face down on the bed. She had heard those words in church clothes, in office emails, in neighborly smiles on Clover Street. Now she was hearing them in her own home, in her own marriage. She had married J1 believing that love, real love, chosen love, could be a shelter from a world that had always made her feel like too much and not enough at the same time. But shelter only works if the people inside it are willing to hold it up. And J1 was quiet. He was choosing quiet. And in Naomi's experience, quiet was never neutral. Quiet had a side. It always did. If you're already feeling this story, you are not alone. And trust me, it gets deeper. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what happens next. Because the next part? Nobody sees it coming. The house in Atlanta was big. Too big for just two people, really. It had high ceilings and marble countertops, and windows that looked out onto a city that was supposed to be Naomi's fresh start. But now, with SUNY Park inside those walls, the house felt like a cage. A very expensive, very polite cage. The cruelty wasn't loud. That was the thing Naomi learned quickly. It didn't scream. It didn't throw things. It whispered. It smiled. It offered help with one hand while pushing you down with the other. It started with the food. Naomi loved to cook. It was one of the few things that made her feel at home. But SUNY took over the kitchen the moment she unpacked her bags. "Oh, Naomi," SUNY would say, her voice light, like she was sharing a secret joke. "I know you try so hard, but Korean food, it is very specific. The spices, the balance. Maybe it is too complicated for you. Why don't you go sit down? I will handle this." And then she would cook something spicy, something rich, something that smelled amazing but made Naomi's stomach turn just a little because she wasn't used to it. When J1 came home, the table would be full. "Mom made her famous stew," J1 would say, smiling, kissing his mother on the cheek. "You didn't have to do that, Mom. I want my son to eat well," SUNY would say, squeezing his arm. Then she'd look at Naomi. "I made a separate salad for Naomi. I know. American palates can be sensitive." Naomi would sit there, picking at the lettuce, while they ate the stew. She wanted to scream that she ate spicy food all the time back in Millfield. She wanted to say that her grandmother's gumbo would burn this stew right off the map. But she didn't. She just smiled that tight, polite smile she had perfected over 30 years. "It's delicious, Mrs. Park," she'd say. "Call me Mother." SUNY would reply, without any warmth at all. Eventually, the clothes were worse. A week after she arrived, SUNY took Naomi shopping. "We need to update your look," she'd said. "You are a Park now. You cannot look like you are going to a barbecue." Naomi had felt a flush of heat on her neck. She liked her clothes. She liked her bright colors, her bold prints. But she went. She wanted to please her. In the store, SUNY held up a beige trench coat, a gray pencil skirt, a navy blue blouse that looked stiff enough to stand on its own. "Try this," she commanded. Naomi tried it on. She looked in the mirror and felt like she was disappearing. The colors washed her out. They made her look tired. "It's conservative," Naomi said, trying to be nice. "It is elegant," SUNY corrected, adjusting the collar. J1 likes elegance. He does not like loud. When Naomi wore the beige coat to dinner that night, J1 looked at her, his brow furrowing slightly. "You look different," he said. He sounded confused. "Is everything okay?" "I just wanted to try something new," Naomi said, her voice small. SUNY beamed, pouring tea for her son. "I told her it suited her complexion better. Don't you agree? It makes her look so refined." J1 shrugged, relaxing. "If you like it, Naomi. You look nice." But he didn't look at her the way he used to. He didn't reach for her hand across the table. And Naomi realized with a sinking feeling that SUNY was editing her, erasing the parts of Naomi that J1 had fallen in love with, one beige coat at a time. Then came the isolation. SUNY was a master at timing. She would wait until J1 was on a conference call, or in the shower, or just stepping out to get the mail. That's when the gloves came off. One Tuesday, Naomi was folding laundry in the guest room. SUNY walked in, closing the door softly behind her. "I saw you talking to the gardener," SUNY said. She was holding a silk scarf, twisting it around her fingers. "Yes," Naomi said, confused. "I was just asking him to trim the hedges near the window." You were laughing, Suni said. Her voice was flat, cold, with a man who works for us, in your husband's house. I was being polite, Naomi said, her heart starting to hammer. He told a joke. In Korea, Suni said, walking closer. A wife does not joke with the help. It creates confusion. It makes the family look weak. She paused, looking Naomi up and down. Maybe this is how things are done where you come from. But here, we have standards. I wasn't doing anything wrong, Naomi whispered. Of course not, Suni said, her smile returning, that terrifying, perfect smile. You just don't know any better yet. I am only trying to help you. For Jaewon's sake. When Jaewon came in 5 minutes later, Suni was laughing, showing Naomi how to fold a fitted sheet. She is a quick learner, Suni told him. We are having such a nice time. Naomi stood in the corner, feeling like she was losing her mind. The pregnancy happened 2 months later. It wasn't planned. Not really. They hadn't been preventing it, but they hadn't been trying either. When the stick turned pink, Naomi sat on the bathroom floor and cried. Happy tears. Scared tears. She wanted to tell Jaewon immediately. She wanted to run downstairs and shout it from the rooftops. But she hesitated. Because of Suni. Because of the way the house felt lately. Heavy, like a storm was brewing inside the walls. She decided to wait. Just a week. Until she felt sure. Until she could see a doctor. But bodies have a way of announcing themselves. 3 days later, at breakfast, the smell of the coffee hit Naomi like a physical blow. She gagged. Loudly. She clapped a hand over her mouth and ran to the sink. Jaewon was up instantly. Naomi, are you sick? He was at her side, rubbing her back, his hand warm and steady. For a second, the fear vanished. He was her Jaewon again. The man who bought her watercolor sets. The man who held her hand in New Orleans. I think, Naomi started, wiping her mouth. She looked up at him, a smile trembling on her lips. I think I might be pregnant. The room went silent. Jaewon's face broke open. It was like the sun coming out from behind clouds. Really? Oh my God, Naomi. Really? Yes. She laughed, tears in her eyes. Really? He pulled her into a hug, lifting her slightly off the ground. We're going to have a baby, he whispered into her hair. I'm going to be a dad. They were both crying. They were both laughing. It was the happiest moment of Naomi's life, until she heard the sound of a cup being set down. Hard. Clink. They pulled apart. Suni was standing by the table. She wasn't smiling. Her face was like stone. Mother, Jaewon said, breathless. Did you hear? We're having a baby. Suni looked at Naomi. Then she looked at Jaewon. Then she looked at Naomi's stomach, like there was something dirty there. Is it confirmed? She asked. Her voice was icy. Well, not yet, Naomi said, trying to keep the mood light. I need to see a doctor, but... Then do not celebrate yet, Suni cut in. It is premature, and we do not know the health of it. The air left the room. Mom, Jaewon said, his voice dropping. What are you talking about? I am talking about reality, Suni said, smoothing her skirt. Mixed blood. It can be complicated. There are risks. Genetic risks. Social risks. She said the words mixed blood like she was talking about a chemical spill. Naomi felt the blood drain from her face. Are you talking about the baby's race? Suni turned to her, her eyes narrowing. I am talking about the fact that this child will not be purely Korean. It will not be purely anything. It will be confused. That is enough, Jaewon said. He stepped between them. He sounded angry. Finally, this is my child, and Naomi is my wife. We are happy. You will be happy too, or you will go back to Seoul. I mean it. Suni's expression shifted instantly. The malice vanished, replaced by a look of wounded innocence. She put a hand to her chest. Jaewon, she gasped. How can you say that? I am only worried. I am a mother. I worry. I am sorry if I was blunt. I just want what is best for the family. She looked at Naomi. I apologize, Naomi. I did not mean to upset you in your condition. Naomi stared at her. She saw the apology for what it was. A performance. A tactical retreat. Jaewon sighed, rubbing his temples. Just, let's be happy, okay? Please. Yes, Suni said softly. Let us be happy. But she didn't leave. She stood there, watching them, her hands clasped in front of her. And Naomi knew. She knew this wasn't over. The rain started in the afternoon. It was a gray, heavy sky that wouldn't break. Just a steady, soaking drizzle that turned the world blurry. Jae-won had to go to the office. An emergency with a shipment in Chicago. He paced around the living room, looking at his watch, looking at Naomi. "I don't want to leave you," he said. "Not with Mom being like this." "I'll be fine," Naomi said. She was sitting on the sofa, a book in her lap she wasn't reading. "I'm just going to rest. Maybe take a nap. Call me if anything happens," he said. "And if she says anything, just walk away. Go to the bedroom. Lock the door if you have to." "Jae-won, she's your mother," Naomi said, though her stomach was churning. "She's a woman who is being cruel," he said fiercely. "I see it, Naomi. I'm not blind. I need time to fix it. Please, just stay safe." He kissed her forehead. He kissed her stomach. And then he was gone. The house was quiet for an hour. Then, the doorbell rang. Naomi was upstairs, changing into something comfortable. She heard the door open. She heard voices. Suni's voice. And another voice. A man's voice. Curious, and a little nervous, Naomi walked to the top of the stairs. She didn't want to intrude, but she needed to know who was there. She looked down into the foyer. A man was standing there. He was tall, wearing a wet raincoat. He looked ordinary. Maybe a delivery driver. But he wasn't holding anything. Suni was talking to him in low, urgent tones. She looked angry. She was gesturing toward the kitchen. Naomi leaned over the railing, just a little more. The wood creaked. Suni looked up. Their eyes locked. For a split second, Naomi saw pure hatred in the older woman's eyes. Not worry. Not confusion. Hatred. Then Suni turned to the man and said something sharp in English. "Go. Now. Out the back." The man nodded and hurried toward the kitchen. Naomi's heart was pounding. What was going on? Who was that? She went downstairs. She had to know. She found Suni in the kitchen, wiping down the counter with aggressive, angry scrubs. "Who was that?" Naomi asked. Suni didn't look up. "Nobody. A salesman. He didn't have any samples," Naomi said. "And you looked upset." "I am not upset," Suni snapped. She threw the rag into the sink. "I am tired. I am tired of this house. I am tired of the rain. I am tired of complications." She turned to face Naomi. She took a step forward. "You need to go to the store," Suni said suddenly. "What?" Naomi blinked. "Now. It's pouring rain." "Yes," Suni said. Her voice was strange. "Hi. I need specific tea. For the pregnancy. It helps with nausea. There is a market on Peachtree. They have it. You must get it." "Can't we order it?" Naomi asked. "Or wait for Jae-won?" "No," Suni shouted. The sound echoed off the tiles. She composed herself instantly, smoothing her hair. "No. It must be fresh. Please, Naomi. For the baby. I want to help. I want to be a good grandmother." The word grandmother sounded like a threat. Naomi hesitated. She looked out the window. The rain was coming down hard now. Sheets of gray water. The sky was dark, like it was evening already. "I don't have a car," Naomi said. Jae-won took the SUV. "Take my car," Suni said, holding out the keys. The silver keychain glinted under the kitchen lights. "It is in the garage. The blue sedan." Naomi looked at the keys. Then she looked at Suni's face. The woman was smiling again. That terrible, fixed smile. "Okay," Naomi whispered. "I'll go." "Good," Suni said. "Hurry. The baby needs it." Naomi grabbed her coat. She didn't have an umbrella. Suni said they were all in the attic and she couldn't get to them. She ran to the garage. The cold rain hit her face instantly, soaking her hair, her clothes. She fumbled with the keys, finally unlocking the sedan. She got in, shivering. The car smelled like leather and something else. Something chemical. She turned the key. The engine sputtered. Once. Twice. It started. Naomi put the car in reverse. She looked up at the house. In the window of the master bedroom, she saw a silhouette. Suni. She wasn't looking at the rain. She was watching Naomi. And even from this distance, even through the rain-streaked glass, Naomi could see it. Suni was smiling. Naomi put the car in drive and pulled out of the driveway. The rain was blinding. The wipers slapped back and forth, struggling to keep up. The streets were already flooding, the gutters overflowing with brown water. She drove slowly, carefully. Her hands were shaking on the wheel. Why did she send me out? Naomi thought. Why now? She reached the intersection near the park. The light was yellow. She slowed down, and then she heard it. A horn. Loud. Blaring. She looked in the rearview mirror. A truck. A big delivery truck. It was coming up behind her way too fast. The brakes were screeching. A high, terrible sound that cut through the rain. Naomi's eyes went wide. She slammed on the gas. The car lurched forward, but not fast enough. The truck hit the back bumper. The world spun. Metal crunched. Glass shattered. Naomi felt a violent jolt, like a giant hand had grabbed the car and shaken it. Her head snapped forward. The airbag exploded into her face, dusty, hot powder filling her nose, her mouth. Then silence. Just the sound of the rain, pattering on the roof, pattering on the broken glass. Naomi tried to move. Pain shot through her stomach. Sharp. Burning. She gasped, looking down. There was blood. Not a lot. Just a trickle. Dark red against her wet dress. No, she whispered. No, no, no. She reached for her phone. It was on the passenger seat. The screen was cracked. She dialed J1's number. Her fingers were slippery with blood and rain. It rang. Once. Twice. Naomi. J1's voice. I'm in a meeting, what's? J1, she sobbed. The pain was getting worse. A cramping, twisting pain. The car. The truck. I'm bleeding. What? Where are you? The intersection. By the park. Please. The baby. I think. I'm coming, he shouted. I'm coming. Stay with me, Naomi. The line went dead. The phone slipped from her hand. Naomi leaned her head back against the seat. The rain was coming in through the broken window now. Cold. Wet. She closed her eyes. Please, she thought. Please let him be fast. She didn't hear the footsteps splashing through the puddles. She didn't hear the car door open. She only felt the cold air rush in. And then a voice. Not J1's. She's hurt, a stranger said. Leave her, another voice said. A woman's voice. Naomi forced her eyes open. Through the rain, through the pain, she saw a figure standing by the open door. It was Suni. She wasn't wearing a coat. She was holding an umbrella. A black umbrella that shielded her perfectly from the rain. She looked down at Naomi. She looked at the blood. She looked at the crushed metal. And she didn't call an ambulance. She didn't cry. She leaned down, her face close to Naomi's ear, so the rain wouldn't carry her words. I told you, Suni whispered. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. I told you that blood ruins everything. Naomi tried to speak, to beg, but only a croak came out. Suni stood up. She looked at the stranger who had stopped. It's okay. Suni said loudly, her voice clear and steady. I am here. I am the mother-in-law. She was driving recklessly. I told her not to go out in this rain. But she wouldn't listen. We need to call 911, the stranger said. I already did, Suni lied. Smooth as silk. They're on the way. You can go. I will handle this. The stranger hesitated, looked at Naomi's pale face, then walked away. Suni stood there, holding the umbrella, watching Naomi. The rain poured down. Harder. Colder. Naomi felt the warmth leaving her body. The pain was becoming a dull ache. J1, she whispered. Suni looked at her watch. He is stuck in traffic, Naomi. The rain. It is very bad. She leaned in again. And even if he gets here, who will he believe? The hysterical woman who crashed the car? Or his mother, who only wanted to help? Naomi's vision blurred. The edges of the world went gray. The last thing she saw was Suni's face. Calm. Triumphant. And the rain. Just the rain. Washing everything away. This is just the beginning of the heartbreak. If you are holding your breath right now, smash that like button, so I know you're with me. And subscribe if you want to see how Naomi survives this, because the next batch is going to change everything you think you know about the story. The hospital room was white. Too white. The kind of white that hurts your eyes if you stare at it too long. Naomi woke up slowly. Her body felt heavy, like someone had filled her bones with sand. She tried to move her hand. It barely responded. There was a beeping sound. Steady. Mechanical. A heart monitor. She turned her head. It took effort. Everything took effort now. Jae-won was sitting in a chair by the window. He wasn't looking at her. He was looking at his phone. His face was tight, closed off, like a door that had been locked from the inside. Jae-won, she whispered. Her voice sounded like sandpaper. He looked up. His eyes were red. Had he been crying? Or was he just tired? You're awake, he said. He didn't move from the chair. The baby, Naomi said. The words came out broken. Is the baby? Jae-won's jaw tightened. He looked away. That was the answer. Naomi felt something collapse inside her chest. Not her heart. Something deeper. Something that had been holding her together for months. No, she breathed. No, please. Please tell me. The doctor said the impact was too severe, Jae-won said. His voice was flat, emotionless, like he was reading from a script. The placenta detached. There was internal bleeding. They couldn't save it. He said it. Not the baby, not our child. It. Naomi closed her eyes. The tears came. Hot, silent, rolling down her cheeks and soaking into the hospital pillow. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I didn't want to go out. Your mother said, she said there was tea. For the baby. She said it was important. I didn't want to. My mother. Jae-won's voice changed. Sharper now. He finally stood up, walking toward the bed. My mother told me you insisted on going. She said she begged you to stay home. She said you were stubborn, that you wanted to prove you could do things on your own. Naomi's eyes flew open. That's not true. She said you took her car without asking. She gave me the keys. She said the car had been having problems, that she told you not to drive it, that you didn't listen. Jae-won. Naomi reached for his hand. He pulled it back. Jae-won, please. I would never put our baby in danger. You have to believe me. She sent me out there. She wanted me to go. I don't know why, but she... Stop. Jae-won's voice cracked. He turned away from her, his shoulders shaking. Just stop. My mother has been nothing but kind to you. She came here to help us. She cooked for you. She took you shopping. She tried to make you feel welcome. And you blame her for this. Because it's the truth, Naomi cried. The heart monitor started beeping faster. She hates me, Jae-won. She has hated me from the moment she saw my skin. She calls me things in Korean when you're not around. She makes me feel like I'm nothing. Like I'm dirt in her house. Your house. Our house. Jae-won spun around. His face was twisted with grief and anger and something else. Something that looked like doubt. But the doubt was pointed at her. You sound crazy, he said quietly. You sound like you're making excuses. I am telling you what happened. My mother was at home when the accident happened. She called 911. She rode in the ambulance with you. She sat in this waiting room for 6 hours while you were in surgery. Does that sound like someone who hates you? Naomi stared at him. Her mind was spinning. Suni had been there. At the crash. She had told Naomi to stay. She had watched her bleed. She had whispered those horrible words. But of course, she had called 911 eventually. Of course, she had played the worried mother-in-law. That was the whole point. She was always innocent when it mattered. She was always the victim. I know what I saw, Naomi said, her voice breaking. I know what she said to me. What did she say? Naomi hesitated. The words stuck in her throat. I told you that blood ruins everything. Asterisk, how could she repeat that? How could she make him understand? She said that my blood ruins everything. Jae-won blinked. Your blood. Yes. Because I'm black. Because the baby would have been mixed. She didn't want. That is enough. Jae-won held up his hand. His voice was cold now. Frozen. I cannot listen to this. I just lost my child. My child. And you are sitting here, in a hospital bed, accusing my mother of racism. Of sabotage. Of what? Attempted murder. I'm not saying. You are saying. That's exactly what you're saying. He backed away from the bed. I need air. I need to think. Jae-won, please don't leave me here alone. He stopped at the door. He didn't turn around. My mother is in the waiting room, he said. She'll stay with you. And then he was gone. Naomi lay there, staring at the ceiling. The beeping of the heart monitor filled the silence. She had lost the baby. She was losing her husband. And the woman who had orchestrated it all was about to walk through that door, wearing a mask of concern, ready to twist the knife a little deeper. The door opened. Suni stepped in. She was carrying a small bouquet of white flowers. Lilies. Funeral flowers. "Naomi," she said softly, placing the flowers on the side table. "How are you feeling?" Naomi didn't answer. She couldn't even look at her. Suni sat down in the chair Jae-won had vacated. She folded her hands in her lap. Perfect posture. Perfect composure. "I know this is difficult," Suni said. "Losing a child, it is the worst pain a woman can feel. I understand." "Do you?" Naomi's voice was hollow. "I do." Suni leaned forward. "I lost a child once. Before Jae-won. A daughter. She was stillborn. I carried her for 8 months, and then nothing. Just silence." Naomi looked at her. For a split second, she saw something real in Suni's eyes. Pain. Old pain. But then it was gone. Replaced by that cold, calculating gaze. "The difference," Suni continued, "is that I did not blame others for my loss. I accepted it. I moved forward. I did not make accusations." "I'm not making accusations," Naomi said. "I'm telling the truth. The truth." Suni smiled. It was a sad smile. A pitying smile. "Naomi, I know you believe that. Grief does strange things to the mind. It makes us see enemies where there are none. It makes us desperate for someone to blame. You told me to go out in that rain. I suggested tea. You chose to go. You gave me your car keys. You asked for them. You were there. At the crash. Before the ambulance." Suni's smile didn't waver. "I followed you. I was worried. A mother's instinct. And when I saw the accident, I ran to help. I held your hand, Naomi. I told you to hold on. Lies. All lies. But spoken so smoothly, so confidently, that Naomi felt her own memory start to blur. Had Suni held her hand? Had she imagined the whisper? The hatred? No. No. She knew what she had heard. "Get out," Naomi said. Suni raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me. Get out of my room. Now." Suni stood up slowly. She smoothed her skirt. She picked up her purse. "I will tell Jae-won you need rest," she said calmly. "And Naomi, I hope you recover soon. Not just your body. Your mind as well." She walked out, leaving the funeral flowers behind. Naomi turned her face to the wall and cried until there was nothing left. The weeks that followed were a blur. Naomi was discharged from the hospital after 5 days. The doctors said she was healing well physically. The internal bleeding had stopped. The surgery had been successful. She would be able to have children again someday, they said. Like that was supposed to be comforting. But physically healing and actually healing were two very different things. She went home to a house that didn't feel like home anymore. Jae-won was there, but he wasn't there. He slept in the guest room. He left for work before she woke up and came back after she was asleep. When they did see each other, he looked at her like she was a stranger. Like she was someone he used to know but couldn't quite remember. Suni stayed for another month. She cooked. She cleaned. She played the devoted mother-in-law. And every time Jae-won was out of the room, she would look at Naomi with that cold, triumphant smile. "You should eat more," Suni would say sweetly, placing a bowl of soup in front of Naomi. "You look so thin, so tired." Naomi would push the soup away. She couldn't eat anything Suni made. She couldn't trust it. She started cooking for herself. Late at night, when everyone was asleep, simple things, rice, eggs, toast. She ate alone in the dark kitchen, listening to the hum of the refrigerator. She started losing weight, not on purpose. She just couldn't keep anything down. The stress sat in her stomach like a rock. She started getting headaches, bad ones, the kind that made her vision blur and her hands shake. She started feeling tired all the time. Not sleepy tired, bone tired, the kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. She told herself it was grief. It was just grief. It would pass. It didn't pass. 3 months after the accident, Naomi collapsed in the bathroom. She had been brushing her teeth. Nothing dramatic. Just standing at the sink, looking at her reflection. Thin face, dark circles, dull eyes. And then the world tilted sideways and she was on the floor. She didn't know how long she was there. Minutes. Hours. When she woke up, her cheek was pressed against the cold tile. There was blood on her lip where she had bitten it falling. She crawled to her phone. She called Jae-won. He didn't answer. She called again. Voicemail. She lay there, breathing hard, staring at the ceiling. Then she called 911. The emergency room was chaos. Bright lights, loud voices, people moving fast. Naomi answered questions in a daze. Name, date of birth, allergies, medical history. They ran tests, blood work, scans, more blood work. A doctor came in. Young, tired. She had kind eyes. Mrs. Park, the doctor said, sitting down next to the bed. We found some things in your blood work that we need to discuss. Naomi's stomach dropped. What kind of things? The doctor hesitated. She looked at the chart in her hands. Your white blood cell count is abnormal. Very abnormal. We need to do more tests, but... She paused. Mrs. Park, have you been tested for HIV recently? The room went silent. HIV. Naomi repeated. The word didn't make sense. No. I mean no. Why would I? I've been married. I haven't. I don't understand. It could be a false positive, the doctor said quickly. We need to confirm. But there's also... She looked at the chart again. There's also some concerning markers for cancer. Lymphoma, possibly. It's early. We can't be sure without more tests. Cancer. HIV. The words floated in the air like ghosts. This can't be right, Naomi whispered. There has to be a mistake. We'll run everything again, the doctor said gently. But Mrs. Park, is there anyone you can call? Family? Your husband? Naomi thought about J1. The guest room. The silence. The way he looked at her now. No, she said quietly. There's no one. The tests came back 3 days later. The HIV was confirmed. The cancer was confirmed. Lymphoma. Stage 2. Naomi sat in the oncologist's office, alone, listening to words that sounded like they were coming from underwater. Treatment options. Chemotherapy. Antiretroviral medication. Survival rates. She signed papers. She scheduled appointments. She walked out of the hospital and stood on the sidewalk, watching cars pass by. She had HIV. She had cancer. And she had no idea how. She hadn't been with anyone except J1. Not in years. Not ever, really. He was her first. Her only. Which meant, no. She couldn't think about that. Not yet. She went home. The house was empty. J1 was at work. Suni had finally gone back to Seoul the week before, satisfied that she had done enough damage. Naomi sat on the couch in the living room. The same couch where J1 had held her when she told him she was pregnant. The same couch where they had talked about baby names and nursery colors and the future. She didn't cry. She was too tired to cry. She just sat there, in the silence, and felt the weight of everything pressing down on her. HIV. Cancer. A dead baby. A husband who didn't believe her. A mother-in-law who had destroyed her life. And now this. She was dying. Slowly. Quietly. And no one even knew. She didn't tell J1. She told herself it was because he wouldn't care. He barely looked at her anymore. He barely spoke to her. They were roommates now, not spouses. Strangers sharing a house. But maybe, deep down, she didn't tell him because she was scared of what he might say. Scared that he would blame her somehow. Scared that he would think she had done something wrong. So she kept it to herself. She started treatment. Alone. She drove herself to the hospital. She sat in the chemotherapy chair with a needle in her arm and watched poison drip into her veins. She threw up in the bathroom at home, muffling the sound with a towel, so J1 wouldn't hear. She lost her hair. Not all at once. Slowly. In clumps. She found it on her pillow in the morning. She found it in the shower drain. She bought a wig, a simple one, dark brown, shoulder length, and wore it every day so no one would notice. She got thinner. Weaker. Some days, she could barely get out of bed. She told J1 she had the flu. Then she told him it was anemia. Then she stopped telling him anything because he stopped asking. The silence became her prison. The house became her tomb. And every day, she felt herself fading a little more. One night, 4 months after the diagnosis, Naomi couldn't sleep. She was lying in bed, alone, always alone now, staring at the ceiling. The moonlight came through the curtains, casting silver shadows on the walls. She thought about her grandmother, a strong woman, a kind woman, a woman who had survived things Naomi couldn't even imagine. Her grandmother used to say, "Baby girl, the Lord doesn't give you more than you can carry. But sometimes He gives you just enough to make you stronger." Naomi had believed that once. She wasn't sure she believed it anymore. She got up. She walked to the window. She looked out at the city lights. Atlanta, sprawling and bright and completely indifferent to her pain. She thought about leaving, just walking out the door, getting in a car, driving until she ran out of road. But where would she go? Back to Millfield? Back to the church that never wanted her? The neighborhood that never saw her? The job that never valued her? There was no escape. There never had been. She was trapped, and she was dying, and she was completely, utterly alone. The doorbell rang at 10 o'clock the next morning. Naomi was in the kitchen, forcing herself to eat a piece of toast. She wasn't expecting anyone. She walked to the door slowly. Her legs ached. Everything ached now. She opened the door. A woman was standing there. Young, maybe late 20s, black like Naomi. She had braids pulled back in a neat bun and sharp, intelligent eyes. "Naomi Clark?" the woman asked. "Naomi Park," Naomi corrected automatically. Then she paused. "Who are you?" The woman held up a badge. "My name is Detective Aisha Williams. Atlanta PD. I need to ask you some questions about your mother-in-law." Naomi blinked. "Suni." "Yes, ma'am." Detective Williams tucked the badge back into her pocket. "May I come in?" Naomi hesitated. Then she stepped aside. "What is this about?" she asked as the detective walked into the living room. Detective Williams turned to face her. Her expression was serious. Careful. "Mrs. Park," she said slowly, "I'm investigating a series of incidents connected to the Park family. Financial irregularities, possible fraud, and..." She paused. "And a suspicious death." Naomi's blood went cold. "A death? Who?" Detective Williams looked at her for a long moment. "Your husband's ex-girlfriend," she said. "A woman named Jian Lee. She died 2 years ago in Seoul. The official cause was suicide. But we have reason to believe..." She took a breath. "We have reason to believe she was murdered. And we think Suni Park was involved." The room started spinning. "Mrs. Park." Detective Williams stepped forward. "Are you okay?" Naomi grabbed the edge of the couch to steady herself. "I need to sit down," she whispered. She sat. She breathed. She tried to make sense of what she was hearing. Jian Lee, Jae-won's ex-girlfriend, murdered by Suni. And then a thought hit her. A terrible, horrible thought. HIV, cancer, diseases that didn't make sense, diseases that had appeared out of nowhere. What if they weren't natural? What if someone had given them to her? She looked up at Detective Williams. "I think," Naomi said slowly, her voice shaking, "I need to tell you everything. Y'all, I know your jaw just dropped. Because this story is about to go somewhere nobody expected. If you're still here, if you're still watching, comment below and tell me what you think is going to happen next. And make sure you subscribe." Detective Aisha Williams sat across from Naomi for 3 hours that morning. She listened. She wrote notes. She didn't interrupt. She didn't look at Naomi like she was crazy. She didn't tell her she was imagining things. She just listened. And when Naomi finished talking, about Suni, about the rain, about the crash, about the baby, about the HIV and the cancer, Detective Williams closed her notebook and looked Naomi dead in the eyes. "I believe you," she said simply. 2 words. That was all it took. 2 words that Naomi hadn't heard from anyone in months. She broke down. Right there on the couch, in her too big sweater and her wig that was starting to slip, she broke down completely. Detective Williams didn't touch her. She didn't rush her. She just sat there, steady and present, waiting for the storm to pass. "We've been building a case against Suni Park for 8 months, Williams explained when Naomi had calmed down. "Jian Lee, your husband's ex. She was Korean. Beautiful. From a good family. Suni approved of her. They were supposed to get married. What happened?" Naomi asked, wiping her face. Jian found out about Jae-won's business. The real business. The one that doesn't show up on any website. She threatened to go to the police. And then 2 weeks later, she was dead. Officially ruled a suicide in Seoul. But our investigation, working with Korean authorities, suggests otherwise. Naomi felt sick. "And you think Suni..." "We know Suni was in Seoul when it happened. We know she visited Gian the day before she died. And we know she has connections to people who can make problems disappear. Williams leaned forward. Mrs. Park, I need to ask you something. The HIV diagnosis. When exactly did your symptoms start? Naomi thought about it carefully. Maybe 3 months after Suni arrived. I was tired all the time. I thought it was the pregnancy. Then after the accident it got worse. The doctors found it during the emergency room visit. And before Suni arrived? Any symptoms at all? No. Nothing. I had a physical 6 months before the wedding. Everything was completely clear. Williams nodded slowly. And your husband? Has he been tested? I don't know, Naomi admitted. We don't really talk anymore. Mrs. Park, I'm going to tell you something difficult. Williams paused. Gian Lee was also diagnosed with HIV 3 months before she died. And there's evidence, circumstantial but strong, that she was deliberately exposed. The room went cold. You think Suni gave her HIV? Naomi whispered. I think Suni has access to people and resources that most of us can't even imagine. And I think she has a pattern. Women who threaten her family, her version of the family, end up sick. Or dead. Or both. Naomi sat with that. She let it sink in past the shock, past the horror, all the way down to the deep, quiet place where truth lives. She had been targeted. Deliberately. Carefully. In a way designed to look like bad luck. Like God's judgment. Like her own body failing her. What do I do? Naomi asked. William stood up. For now. You stay alive. You keep going to treatment. And you let me do my job. She handed Naomi a card. Call me anytime. Day or night. Naomi held that card like it was the most important thing she had ever been given. Something shifted in Naomi after that conversation. Not in the house. Not with J1. But deep inside herself, something that had been dim for months suddenly found a little light. She knew now. She knew what had been done to her. She knew who had done it. And knowing, even painful knowing, was better than the confusion that had been eating her alive. She started eating again. Properly. She called Miss Bernice, her grandmother's oldest friend down in Savannah, and got the recipe for the healing broth her grandmother used to make. Chicken, garlic, ginger, turmeric. She made a pot every Sunday. She started walking. Around the block at first. Then 2 blocks. Then 3. Slow. Steady. Refusing to disappear. And then 6 months after losing the first baby, something happened that nobody, not Naomi, not the doctors, not anyone, saw coming. She was pregnant again. She found out on a Wednesday morning. Alone. In the bathroom. Same pink line. She sat on the bathroom floor and stared at it for a long time. There had been one night, just one, about 6 weeks before. J1 had come home late and found her in the kitchen. They had talked. Really talked. About nothing special. About the weather. About a show they used to watch. About the way Atlanta looked at night from the living room window. Something had softened between them. Just for one night. Now this. She was sick. She was scared. The doctors would say the risks were enormous. But underneath all of that, something small and stubborn and alive flickered inside her chest. Hope. Just a little. But still. She told J1 that evening. He was at the kitchen table going through paperwork. He looked tired. Older than he should have looked at 35. The months of silence had aged him too. I need to tell you something, she said. He put his pen down. Okay. I'm pregnant. The silence lasted maybe 15 seconds. She counted the ticks of the kitchen clock. Then J1 put his head in his hands. After everything, he whispered. Yes, after everything. He stood up slowly. He walked toward her. He stopped a foot away and looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in months. Are you okay? He asked. Like he actually wanted the answer. No, she said honestly. But I'm still here. And I need you to be here too. Really here. Not in the guest room. Not at the office. Here. Something moved across his face. Recognition, maybe. Or guilt finally deciding to show up. Okay, he said quietly. Okay. He reached out and took her hand. She let him. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was something. At the 8-week ultrasound, the doctor paused. She moved the wand slowly. Then she stopped. Mrs. Park, she said carefully. Do you see this? Naomi looked at the screen. A blur. Two blurs. Two tiny separate flickering lights on a black and white screen. Twins, the doctor said. Naomi's hand flew to her mouth. J1 was holding her other hand. His grip tightened immediately. Two babies, he repeated, like he couldn't believe the words coming out of his own mouth. He looked at Naomi. She looked at him. And just for 1 second they were back. The Pearl Restaurant. New Orleans. Beignet powder on their clothes. The watercolors set on the hotel bed. The people they had been before the world crashed into them. But love is never enough when hatred is still working overtime in the background. Soon he found out. Naomi never knew exactly how. Maybe a careless word from J1 during an obligatory phone call. Maybe someone watching the house. Maybe Suni simply had her ways. She always had her ways. The phone call started again. J1 took them behind closed doors. He came out looking like someone had wrung him out and hung him up to dry. He would say it's nothing, and Naomi would nod and pretend to believe him. But one evening, she was walking past his office, and the door wasn't fully closed. She heard his voice. Sharp. Controlled. There will not be a black air in this family. Mom, listen to yourself. A long pause. Suni's voice coming through the phone. Too muffled to make out words, but the tone was clear. Cold. Commanding. These are my children, J1 said. Mine. And Naomi is my wife. You will leave this alone. Another pause. Don't come here, Mom. I mean it. Do not come to this house. He hung up. Naomi heard something hit the wall inside the office. She went back to the bedroom before he found her in the hallway. She sat on the bed and pressed both hands flat against her stomach, where the twins were already growing, already becoming real. I've got you, she whispered, to herself as much as them. I've got you. The storm came on a Thursday, 3 weeks before her due date. The sky had been threatening all week. Heavy gray clouds, sitting low over Atlanta like they had something to say. The forecast said severe thunderstorms. Possible flooding. Stay indoors. J1 had a business situation in Chicago. One night only. He would fly out Thursday evening and be back Friday morning before sunrise. He didn't want to go. I'll cancel, he said, standing in the hallway with his bag, looking at Naomi on the couch. She was enormous now. Swollen feet. Slow movements. The twins pressed against every inch of space inside her. Go, she told him. I'll be fine. One night. You're 37 weeks pregnant with twins, Naomi. I know how pregnant I am, she said, a small smile on her face. Go. Come back early. He hesitated at the door. He looked at her for a long time. I love you, he said. Quiet. Like a confession he'd been holding for months. I love you too, she said. And she meant it. Even after everything. She meant every single word. He left. The rain started 20 minutes later. Not soft rain. Not Atlanta drizzle. This was something furious. Hammering the windows. Turning the streets into rivers. Thunder rolled across the sky over and over like it was warning someone. Naomi was watching it from the living room when she heard a sound she wasn't expecting. The back door. The garage entrance. Opening. She turned. Suni Park stepped into the kitchen. She was soaking wet. Her silver hair hung loose and wild around her face. Naomi had never seen it like that. Always the perfect bun. Always controlled. But tonight she looked like someone who had stopped pretending. How did you get in? Naomi said. Her voice was steadier than she felt. J1 changed the front lock. Suni peeled off her wet coat slowly. He forgot about the garage code. I have always known the garage code. You need to leave, Naomi said. Right now. I'll call J1. Call him. Suni said simply. He is on a plane. He cannot answer. She walked into the living room, looking around like she was taking inventory. Her eyes landed on Naomi's stomach and stayed there. 2 babies, she said. Not a question. Yes, Naomi said. 2 mixed babies. Suni's voice dropped. Something dark moved behind her eyes. I told my son this could not happen. I told him from the beginning. I told him what you are. What your blood means for this family. He would not listen. What I am, Naomi repeated. The words burned coming out. I am his wife. I am the mother of his children. That is what I am. You are a problem, Suni said. Flat. Final. A problem I should have solved sooner. She walked toward the back door. The one that led to the patio. All glass. She reached it and turned the handle. The storm roared, and instantly, cold and violent and enormous. "Get out," Suni said. Naomi didn't move. "No. Get out of this house." She moved fast, faster than Naomi expected. She grabbed Naomi's arm with both hands. Naomi tried to pull away, but her body was too heavy, too compromised by months of illness and chemotherapy and pregnancy. "Let go of me. Let go." Suni shoved her through the open door. Naomi stumbled onto the wet patio. Her bare feet slipped on the stone. She went down on one knee, catching herself with her hands. The rain hit her like a wall of freezing water. Her nightgown soaked through in seconds. The cold reached her bones almost immediately. She turned around. Suni was standing in the doorway, framed by the kitchen light. Dry, composed. She closed the door. The lock clicked. "No!" Naomi scrambled to the glass and pounded on it with both fists. "Please. The babies. Please open the door. Please." Suni stood on the other side of the glass and watched. Then she reached over and turned off the kitchen light. Darkness. Complete and total darkness. Just the rain, the thunder, the cold pressing in from every direction. The contractions started 15 minutes later. Not gradual. Not gentle warnings. Immediate. Like her body had been waiting for exactly the wrong moment and chose it deliberately. Naomi collapsed onto the patio stones. The cold of them shot through her knees, her hands, her whole body. She screamed. The thunder ate the sound. She screamed again, and again, until her voice gave out, and all she could do was make a low, desperate sound that the storm swallowed whole. She tried every door, every window, dragging herself from one locked surface to the next in the pouring rain. Pounding, begging. Nothing opened. She ended up back on the patio, on her side, the rain pouring over her, the contractions coming harder and faster and more savage than anything she had ever felt in her life. She thought about her grandmother, about the healing broth on Sunday mornings, about Miss Bernice and sweet potato pie and the botanical garden in Savannah with yellow flowers. She thought about J1 buying her that honey cake at the Pearl, about New Orleans and beignet powder and the watercolor set on the hotel bed. She thought about the first baby, the one the rain had already taken once. "Not again," she whispered into the dark. "Please, not again." But some things don't listen to please. J1's plane landed in Chicago at 9:52 p.m. He turned on his phone. 16 missed calls from the house alarm company. 5 from Detective Williams. 0 from Naomi. His stomach dropped through the floor. He called her. No answer. He called the house. No answer. He called Williams. "Where is my wife?" "Mr. Park, your mother's passport was flagged at Hartsfield 3 hours ago. She flew in from Seoul. We have reason to believe she went to your house. We have officers en route, but..." He threw the phone into his bag and ran. Private charter. The only flight he could get. 2 hours back to Atlanta that felt like 2 years. He sat in the small plane with his hands on his knees, staring at nothing, trying not to think, trying not to imagine. He prayed. He hadn't prayed since before Naomi got sick. But he prayed now. Quietly. Desperately. Asterisk, please. Just let her be alive. Just that. That's all. Just alive. Asterisk. He arrived at 12:20 a.m. He broke through the garage. Ran through the dark house. Found the kitchen. Saw the back door. He looked through the glass. Naomi was on the patio. On her side. Not moving. "Naomi!" He unlocked the door. He was on his knees beside her in 2 seconds. She was cold in a way that frightened him. Not just cold from rain. Cold from the inside. Her lips were blue. Her bald head, bare, exposed, beautiful, was pressed against the wet stone. But she was breathing. A thin, terrible sound, but breathing. "I'm here," he sobbed. "I'm here. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Naomi. I'm here." She opened her eyes. Just barely. "The babies," she whispered. I know. We're going." He scooped her up. She was lighter than she should have been, even at 37 weeks pregnant. The illness had taken so much of her. "Stay with me. Stay with me." He ran to the car. 90 miles an hour to the hospital. Every red light ignored. He talked to her the whole way. About nothing. About everything. About New Orleans and honey cake and yellow flowers and the names they had chosen and the nursery they hadn't finished painting yet. Just to keep her with him. Just to keep her voice going. She didn't answer, but she was still breathing when they reached the hospital doors. They took her immediately. Emergency C-section. The twins were in critical distress. Naomi was in critical distress. The team moved fast, surrounding her, and J1 was pushed back into the hallway. He stood there, soaking wet, shaking. Detective Williams arrived 40 minutes later. She found him with his forehead pressed against the wall, both hands flat on the surface, like he was trying to hold the building up. "Where is she?" Williams asked. "Surgery," he said without moving. "The twins." "Don't know yet." Williams stood beside him. Quiet. Present. After a moment he spoke. "She was sick," he said. "HIV. Cancer. I found her medical files tonight before I left. She's been going to chemotherapy alone for months. Driving herself. Sitting in that chair by herself. Coming home and pretending she had the flu, so I wouldn't worry." His voice cracked on the last word. "While I was sleeping in the guest room, and believing my mother and failing her in every way a man can fail a woman." Williams closed her eyes briefly. "I need you to get tested," she said quietly. "For HIV. For everything. As soon as possible." He finally turned to look at her. "Why?" "Because Suni Park has done this before. To Jian Lee. The same diagnosis. The same timeline. There's a pattern, J1. And if she had access to your house, your food, She poisoned Naomi," he said. The words came out like stones. Heavy. Certain. "We believe so. But proving it." "I don't need you to prove it," he said. "I know." The doctor came out at 4:12 a.m. She was still in scrubs. Her face told the story before her mouth did. "Mr. Park." He stood up straight. "The twins," she began. "A boy and a girl. They were delivered, but they were severely premature, and the exposure, the cold, the trauma, combined with your wife's condition affecting them throughout the pregnancy." She stopped. Gathered herself. "They didn't survive, Mr. Park. We did everything we could. I'm so sorry." He didn't make a sound. "And Naomi?" he asked. His voice was barely there. The doctor's face changed again. Something behind her eyes went soft with sorrow. "Your wife coded twice on the table. We brought her back the first time." A pause. Long and terrible. The second time, her body had nothing left to fight with. The illness. The cancer. The exposure. The trauma of delivery. It was too much. She reached out and touched his arm. "She's gone, Mr. Park. I'm so very sorry." Naomi Clark Park was 32 years old. The twins never got names. They never got the chance. J1 buried all three of them in Savannah. In the botanical garden where they had gotten married. Where yellow flowers grew in every season like they had been planted specifically for this. He stood at the grave on the day of the burial and did not cry. He had run out of tears somewhere between Chicago and Atlanta on that terrible night and hadn't found them again. He just stood there, in the quiet, in the Savannah morning, looking at three headstones that should never have existed. Naomi's Reed, Naomi Clark Park. She was always enough. He had chosen those words himself, at 3 a.m., sitting on the floor of a hospital room, looking at the medical files she had hidden to protect him. She had always been enough. The world had just never been decent enough to see it. J1 got tested 2 weeks after the funeral. HIV positive, early-stage lymphoma. The same pattern, the same diseases, delivered into his body through his wife, the woman his mother had deliberately targeted. Suni Park had poisoned them both. Detective Williams worked the case for 10 months. She gathered everything she could. She flew to Seoul twice. She interviewed witnesses. She built a timeline connecting Suni to Jian's death, to Naomi's illness, to the night of a storm. But in the end, the evidence wasn't enough to prosecute. Suni had money. She had connections that ran deeper than any police department could reach. The witnesses disappeared or changed their stories. The Korean authorities closed their end of the investigation. The American case collapsed without the international cooperation it needed. No arrest. No trial. No courtroom. No orange jumpsuit. Suni Park walked free. Williams called J1 to tell him. The line was quiet for a long time. "J1, Williams said. "I'm so sorry. I tried everything." "I know you did," he said. "She's going to just Go back to Seoul. Like nothing happened. I know. Doesn't that? William stopped herself. Destroy me, he finished for her. Yes. But there's nothing I can do about the law. What I can do is the only thing that might actually matter to her. What's that? Take away the one thing she wanted from the beginning. He called his mother once. Just once. 3 days after Williams told him the case was dropped. Suni answered on the second ring. Her voice was calm, composed. Like always. J1, I have been trying to reach you for. Don't, he said. She went quiet. I want you to listen to me, he said. His voice was steady, not angry, not screaming, just steady in a way that was somehow worse than screaming. I know what you did to Naomi. I know about Jian. I know about everything. You may have fooled the law. You may have bought your way out of a courtroom. But you will never buy your way back into my life. Not for one single day. Not for one single hour. J1, I did what I did for this family. Naomi was my family, he said. She was my family. And you took her. And you took our babies. And you gave me a disease I will carry for the rest of my life. And you did all of it because she was black. Because of her skin. Because you looked at a woman who loved your son completely and decided she was less than nothing. I was protecting. You were protecting your own hatred, he said, and dressing it up as love. You don't know what love is. Silence on her end. I am your mother, she finally said. Small, quieter than he had ever heard her. You are nothing to me, J1 said. From this day, from this moment, you are nothing. He hung up. He changed his phone number that same afternoon. He blocked every email address she had. He returned every letter she sent, unopened, no matter how many she wrote. He hired a security firm, not his own, a separate one she had no connection to make sure she could never get close to him again. When she flew to Atlanta 6 months later and stood on the sidewalk outside his new apartment in Savannah because she had hired someone to find the address, he didn't open the door. He didn't look out the window. He sat in his kitchen and drank his coffee and let her stand there. She knocked for 2 hours. He never moved. Eventually, a neighbor called the police about a woman creating a disturbance. The officers asked her to leave. She left. She tried again 4 months later. Same result. And again the following year. Every time, J1's answer was the same silence. The same closed door. The same absolute refusal to acknowledge that she existed. She went back to Seoul. She called from different numbers. He learned to recognize the South Korean country code and never answered it. She sent gifts. They went back unopened. She sent word through cousins and old family friends. J1 cut those people off too, gently but completely. She wanted his grief. She wanted his anger. She wanted something from him. Any emotion, any reaction, because even hatred is a connection. He gave her nothing. Nothing is the loneliest thing a person can receive from someone they love. J1 Park started treatment immediately after his diagnosis. The best doctors. The best medications. He had resources Naomi hadn't had. Not because she deserved less, but because by the time she was sick she had been completely alone. He had people. He had money. He had a reason. The HIV became manageable. He adjusted. He learned what his body could and couldn't do. He changed his diet. He rested properly. He stopped working 18-hour days. The lymphoma went into remission within 14 months. It came back once, 2 years later. A scare that had him sitting in an oncologist's office on a Tuesday afternoon, wondering if this was how it ended. It wasn't. He fought it again. And it retreated again. He was not cured. He would never be cured. The disease would be with him for the rest of his life, managed and monitored, and always present just beneath the surface. But he was alive. He was alive. And in Naomi's memory, in her honor, that was enough of a reason to stay that way. He visited her grave every Sunday. Rain or shine, Savannah heat in July, or the rare cold snap in January that turned the botanical garden gray and quiet. He always brought yellow flowers. He would stand there for a long time. Sometimes he talked. Sometimes he just stood in the silence and let it mean something. One Sunday, almost 3 years after she died, he sat down on the small bench beside the grave. He had brought her journal with him. He did that sometimes. Read her entries out loud, like she could hear them. He opened to a page near the middle. Her handwriting, neat and careful and so completely her. I painted today. Just watercolors. The view from the window. Atlanta at sunset looks like something out of a dream if you catch it at the right moment. I think J1 would like this one. Maybe I'll show him. Maybe. He closed the journal. He sat with it on his knees. I would have liked it, he said quietly. I would have liked every single one. The garden was quiet around him, yellow flowers nodding gently in the late afternoon breeze. He thought about Suni, still alive, still in Seoul, still sending letters he never opened, still calling numbers he never answered. Free, completely free. No prison, no punishment, no consequences that the world could see. Just the consequence he had chosen for her, the one that didn't need a courtroom. Complete and permanent absence. She would grow old with her money and her perfect house and her perfect bun and her hatred that had never done anything except destroy everyone around her, including herself. And she would do all of it without her son, without her grandchildren, without any piece of the family she had claimed to be protecting. That was her life now. That would always be her life now. And J1 had decided long ago that he would not spend one more second of his own life being angry about what she had taken from him. He would spend it being grateful for what she hadn't managed to take. The memory of Naomi laughing in New Orleans, beignet powder on her nose, the way she looked at him at the Pearl like she was deciding whether to trust him, and then, slowly decided yes. The watercolors set on the hotel bed, the honey cake, the botanical garden in Savannah where yellow flowers grew in every season. Her voice saying I love you too at the front door on the last night she was alive. She had given him all of that, freely, completely, despite everything the world had done to make her feel like she had nothing worth giving. She was always enough. He stood up. He placed his hand flat on the headstone for a moment. Just a moment. Then he picked up the yellow flowers he had brought and laid them gently at the base of the stone. He walked back through the botanical garden. Slow, steady, alive. If this story sat heavy on your heart, good. It should. Because this isn't just a story. It's the reality that too many Black women in this country live every single day. Loved and unseen at the same time. Enough and never treated like it. If you know a Naomi, if you have been a Naomi, I want you to know somebody sees you. Somebody always did. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss a story that matters. And share this one with somebody who needs to hear it today. Drop a comment and tell me what hit you hardest. I read every single one.